When you were talking about reskilling the workforce, one of the questions I had around it is, what are you seeing in terms of how do you get people motivated for that? And how are they dealing with kind of that emotional change curve and the stress that goes with having to learn or having to change yourself in some way to adapt to this new world?
Well, I think at Cisco, one of the things that we try to do is we don't start from go out and learn. What we do is we say, help us solve a problem. Help us solve a problem, and here's some tools and some things and some learning and that will help you get there, help you understand what you're trying to solve for before you go out and try to solve it. And I think by approaching it that way, it's less daunting. If you're asking people to engage for a purpose, then you get more people willing to sort of just dive in and learn as they go. The other thing that we do is we believe in a highly engaged workforce. It's been proven to be the best way to retain your best employees. In fact, we have almost zero attrition. That is, voluntary. Thank you. We lost the word there somehow. But anyways, and the reason for that is that we spend time with employees at the very beginning on what their career goals are, what they're trying to do. We show them all the different, we have very, planned out paths that they can take if they want to take the typical path, but then, we also encourage them to take their own path. And the most important thing is to have manager engagement with the employee and to have this open conversation about their journey, where they should be, where they need to be, have that constant engagement as part of their overall development and development of the workforce. And we don't think of it, we try not to put the learning word too much in front. We just say, you need to be here, and here's some things you can go to do that, right? And we give them choices of, here's a bunch of assets here, and here's a couple of projects you might want to get involved in. And by doing that, it just seems to open up the conversation, make it less threatening, and people want to engage. I think people want to help the company solve problems. They want to be superstars. They want to stand out. And if you start from that angle, there's really no fear.
I agree with everything that Jeanne said. I would sort of characterize it around advocacy, right? The old days where you would interact with somebody and say, by the way, the train has left the station and you missed it, right? And therefore you have a choice is to come back and figure out a way to do this and come back. Otherwise, you should be thinking about where you want to go next. It's more about having that ongoing dialogue that I found. That's basically says that if you're a manager, you know your people, you know what their interests are, you know what they value, right? Who they are, what they value, and then in that conversation, it opens up this opportunities to understand how what they value, what they're thinking, and how the organization values and what it's thinking can actually be melded together. So we found is that a permanent choice is always a hard choice. So the idea says that make a choice, you're going to try it, right? Here's an opportunity. These are the things that you have the ability, sort of a greater ability in based upon my observation of our work together, for example, and then direct them to those sources and also set up the opportunity for them to go talk to somebody else who does that. I found all of that basically makes the individual feel when they're not alone, they're not afraid, and that this person is genuinely trying to help me, which is this whole aspect of leadership that we were talking about earlier, especially for middle leaders. Taking on this ability to be genuine and your interest in leading others is an important aspect of that, is this whole aspect of reskilling.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like you nailed 90% of what I meant to say. So the only thing I'll add is just sort of like a theoretical framework. I think there's like two pieces that you two are hitting on that are key. One is sort of like this general culture around how it's done, which is like, again, much easier said than done. But I think it needs to feel like the employees are driving their own skill development. So we need to work on empowering employees to be the drivers of that.
What's inspiring them?
Yeah, exactly. And so that it's not being put upon them. And it's such a subtle thing, but it makes such a huge difference in terms of how we approach that with people, particularly around times of change and unknown. And I think the other piece that I've seen a lot, and I think this is more relevant to mid-sized or small companies, less to those who are more well-established like Cisco who have these processes in place, but processes. What is the process then for getting this skill development? Because if those don't exist and they're not clear to people, it can create uncertainty, and that just fuels like that cycle of stress. But if there's a clear process in place and I'm aware of what it is and my role in that, what steps I need to take, then it takes that whole ambiguity piece out. And I think this goes to Tom's earlier point. There's already so much ambiguity that we need to sort of be training people to deal with. But if we can reduce that in areas like this, it makes things like those a pleasurable, great experience where I feel like, oh, my company's investing in me. They believe in me and want to make sure I'm prepared for the things in the future that they see me doing well. So that combination of the sort of the culture and approach and empowering employees and then having the right processes, I think those two things together are key. And I'll just say another book reference. First, you should read Jeanne's book and my book. They're great. Second of all, another one I think is relevant to this broader conversation that I thought about. It's a little bit more technical. It's called Measuring ROI for Leadership Development. It's by Pullman et al. And it's just a really nice piece by smart people who I think understand like this back-end analytics piece of whatever training or development you're doing. The book is focused specifically on leadership development, but I think it relates to development of employees in general. You should be really looking at these back-end pieces. And then I think one thing Jeanne has done so well today is to name a lot of different options, right? It doesn't have to be like an online course or an expensive consultant coming in. I mean, great if you can do those things also, but it can be job shadowing, mentoring, even mentoring someone else, like that experience. And the book, I think, has like a nice, like whole list of things you can do like that provide those learning and development opportunities. And if I think if you can build those in frequently, then when one comes along that's related to these sort of future skills, it's less daunting or surprising or, foreign to people.
And one thing I'd like to add, I love what you just said, and one thing I'd like to add, just for all of you that are CLOs or, in this space, the biggest value you can deliver back to your company is to understand what the jobs are of the future in your own industry, in the areas, in the spaces that you are, and go out and be a prophet. Be a prophet. Go out there and tell people about this, because that's one of the things I've been doing in the 10 years I've been doing this role. And I can't tell you how many people have come up to me after that presentation, oh, I wish my manager knew this. I wish he could tell me this, right? Because sometimes people just don't know. They don't do the research. Sometimes the manager's not in front of it as much as they need to. We can't, while we would love them to be the, sort of the guidepost and everything, sometimes they're not. And so for you, if you want to add that tremendous level of value in thought leadership, if you go out and do that, you will make a name for yourself that will last forever. And help the organization to boot.
Yes, Jeanne, I think you mentioned earlier in terms of leadership reskilling, you have to understand the culture but be willing to challenge the culture.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more, and how were you able to accomplish that within the organization?
Yes, I think that it's all about how do you change the culture and how do you create this sort of environment where risk-taking is acceptable. I think there are a number of things. One is, as leaders, all of us, have to, I think, work with this, level of integrity and honesty and humbleness to be able to let people know in our teams the kind of experiences we've had, how we've learned, how we've grown. Most of us have learned through both our successes and our failures. And if we go out there, I know myself, I go out there and when I talk to my teams, I talk as much about our failures as our successes, but what we learned through that process and what it allowed us to do. What did that failure allow us to go out and do? And so my team has gotten used to, this sort of environment and culture where if you're out there pushing for the right thing and you make a mistake, but understand the mistake you make, correct it, and get back on course, you're going to be celebrated as a hero. Right? Nobody's going to take you down for that in this organization. And so that's the kind of culture we've created by just simply expressing and being honest and open and being humble about, your own personal experiences, how you got to where you are, and then sort of taking people through that journey so they understand that, it's okay. It's okay to fail. Failure, if we teach people that failure is not an option, then we teach people not to innovate, not to progress, to stay stuck in this fixed mindset, which Carol talks about very, from Stanford, Carol Jack. Yeah, she talks about this really, passionately, and that's probably the worst thing that you could have in your organization for the future, right? Because they can't actually get to where you want them to get to. And likewise, you know, I learned that. I learned all of that leadership strategy, if you will, from my leaders who were like that as well. And I think, you know, it has to come from that sort of authentic position of really understanding that, believing that, and then teaching that to your teams.